Hey there, welcome back. It's another regular guy Vikings hour. Thank you so much for watching yet again. I'm so sorry for this being late. I don't know, just kind of a weird weekend. I don't know, just not really feeling that same energy I normally feel. So many apologies for that. Normally I record this Saturday night. It's actually very early Sunday morning. And in fact, I have dipped into the London game, which is being played right now. It started about 40 minutes ago. It's 7:10 here on the West Coast. And so, even though that London game has already started, I'm going to go ahead and throw my pick in the ring for it anyway. I mean, technically the game's not over, but at least I get all the rest of the game, the picks in before the 10 a.m. games start. Again, for me here on the West Coast, but yeah, just wasn't feeling the same energy and like I don't know, preparedness or whatever. So it's going to be kind of a shorter show. I might run maybe like half an hour or something. I don't know. So it'll be a regular guy half an hour this time. I messed around with the audio a little bit. I've noticed, like, as I've been doing this show, that every time I switch between my main cam and I go to like spreadsheets and browsers and stuff, that my audio kind of like dips a little. I think maybe I figured that out. We'll see when I kind of listen back to this if I actually fix that. It'd be nice if I did, because it's been bugging me for a while, and it might have been bugging you guys too. So sorry that that's been happening, and hopefully it'll be better going forward. Just wanted to say I've noticed, again, just I appreciate everyone who's stopped by to watch the show. I appreciate people who give me a like and give me a subscription. My numbers, slowly starting to rise. I've noticed that I get anywhere between, say, like a dozen to like maybe 30 or 40 viewers on any given show. And so if you are like kind of a regular, I really appreciate it. And I hope to get more, obviously. So, spread the word if you can or if you want to. But I'd really love to build this thing, as you know. I've said that many times. But also I've noticed that a lot of other shows, they have like kind of like Q&A sessions where they'll run through and they'll answer comments and questions and things like that. So I haven't actually gotten a comment yet on any one of my videos. So if you'd like to throw in a comment, I would love to be able to maybe like rack up a handful of comments, maybe like throughout the week while I'm still super small, and then I could answer them at the end of the week or something. Just, I know that other shows do the same thing. I mean, what's out there that hasn't already been answered by somebody else who's in the business? But if you've got some kind of a unique question just for me, or something you think maybe that I'd maybe give a more interesting answer on or something like that, then feel free to send it my way, and I'd be happy to do that. So I know this is starting to become kind of a running joke for me, is that I've been teasing this Kwesi Adofo-Mensah centric show where I'm literally going to do an entire hour about what kind of a job I think the GM has done so far in his tenure. And it's like every time I say I'm going to get that show done, I always seem to find a way to not get it done. And I don't know, maybe that's just a me thing, or I just have trouble with deadlines. I'm not totally sure. So I said I was going to do it Friday. It did not happen. It's not going to happen today. It's probably not going to happen tomorrow. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw away the deadline, right? I'm going to say the progression of the research for the show is definitely getting very close to being done. But I'm not going to put a deadline on it, but I do want to promise that I will get that show out. And again, the reason why I'm teasing it is simply because I think it's going to be super interesting, because I think I'm going to throw out some perspectives about what he's done that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else. I'm really going to dive deep on what it means to be a GM, what you truly are responsible for, and just I'm going to go deep. I'm going to compare him to his predecessor. I'm going to compare him to his contemporaries. I'm going to, literally go through like every significant transaction that has occurred during his tenure. Talk about each individual draft. Talk about each individual free agency. I mean, we're gonna go really, really deep. And at the end of it, I have 10 key categories that I think you can judge a general manager by, and we're gonna grade him out in each category and kind of talk about where he's either missed the mark or grown in these areas, and then we're going to give him a final grade on the job that he's done so far. So again, that's going to be a super, super interesting show. I'm so sorry that I've been teasing it for so long and not delivering on that. That's my bad. I know that, and so I will get it. No deadline on it, but it is going to come at some point. So just please look out for that. Okay, so I got that out of the way. So as you know, it's Sunday morning. Kickoff is in less than 3 hours for the Vikings-Lions game. So I just wanted to point out that I've got my old school Chris Carter jersey on today. I actually bought this puppy. It was the very first Vikings jersey I ever bought. I bought it back in, I believe, 1996, which is like, what, 28 years ago? And I think I was 18 at the time. And so I live, as I've said in my intro video, I live in California. So it's not really easy to find Viking stuff out here in California. And I must have been maybe in the mall or something. And, you know, when you're 18, you're young, you have your own money, you can spend it on whatever you want. And I happened to see a Chris. I think it was in the heyday of when Chris was really kind of the peak of his career. And so I saw a Chris Carter jersey in a store somewhere in the mall, and I had to have it. You know, so it's not like an authentic or anything. I think it might have been at that time $20-30, you know. But I've taken good care of it. 28 years later, it's still in pretty good shape, and I could still wear it on game days. So that's cool. So anyway, I'm looking forward to today's game, and I always like to kind of maybe coordinate the jersey I wear with maybe which players I think are going to have a big day. And so when I wear my receiver jersey, I think that it's going to be a big day for Jefferson. So I think Carlton Davis is out for this one, but I'm not totally sure. But either way, I think he could still burn that guy all day long too. So it doesn't matter who's guarding him. I think Jefferson's going to have another big day against the Lions today. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the power rankings, all right? Which I know, just based on the views that I get from my Vikings only content, I maybe get anywhere from, like, I don't know, 15 to 25 to 30 views. But then when I do the NFL stuff, I actually get like upwards of like 40, 50. So it seems like people are really interested in maybe not the power rankings per se, but maybe the picks portion of it, which is cool. So whatever gets you here. So that makes it fun for me. So let's see how the audio turns out on this one, huh? So let's bring over the power rankings. Here they are. And once again, the top of my power rankings have not shifted at all. Kansas City still at 1, Baltimore still at 2, Detroit still at 3, San Francisco still at 4. But now I actually have some movement happening here. I had to finally move Philadelphia out. They just are not. Here's something that scares me about. I was just thinking about this when it comes to the Eagles, is that they have not played good football to this point at all, and yet they're still, I think, above 500, still kind of lingering. And that's the kind of team you don't want to get hot. Because if they get hot, I mean, they could run off a bunch of wins in a row. And so hopefully, just for the sake of the Vikings and the strength of the NFC, hopefully the Eagles never quite hit that hot streak. So they moved out. They finally moved out of my top 5. So anyway, I've got Buffalo at 5 now. I moved them up 1 spot for the week. They're actually up. I started them out at 11 for the year, so they're up 6 spots overall. And I just wanted to go look real quick and see what happened with Buffalo last week, because it can be hard to, especially when you're a week removed, it can be hard to remember what happened the week before. Okay, Bills. Oh yeah, that close win against the Jets on Monday night. So it was on the road. I mean, the Jets are not good, but they're also not bad either. You know, they're lower half of the league, but they have their moments. You know, and they have a little bit more energy kind of in the building right now, and obviously not last week, but of course they changed coaches. They demoted Hackett, which I think was a good move, and now of course things are really perking up for them because they traded for Devontae. They just got Hassan Reddick back. I don't think he's playing necessarily this week, but they got him back, so maybe he is. I don't know. So again, I've been kind of prepping for this show, messing around with the audio and stuff and just kind of getting things set up. So I haven't even really been watching any of the pre-game shows or anything like that. So I'll kind of find out more once I get done with the show and post and all that. So anyway, so the Bills, they're up to 4-2 now. And they got another win over the Jets on the road, so I got them up to 5. Okay, Green Bay has been slowly moving up, week after week, because I think really highly of that team. I've got them at 6 now. And we'll see what the Packers did last week. I think they blew somebody out. Somebody not great. The Cardinals. They were at home. They blew out the Cardinals 34-13. But they just continue to win. They're 4-2. We beat them, but they look great in the second half. And since then, they've been really good. Love's been looking really good. So I've got Green Bay at 6. That's up 2 from last week, and they are up overall 6 spots from 12 to 6 so far in the year. Then I've got our Vikings finally moving into the top 10 for the first time this year for me. Again, if you're brand new to watching this, my power rankings are not like anybody else's power rankings that you're going to see. I do not move teams up and down crazy. I will move a team no more than 4 spots on any given week. I try to keep things really conservative. I'm not a prisoner of the moment. I don't follow who's hot right now, what the standings say, what the national media says. I don't care about any of that because I use my power rankings when I do my picks, and so it's really important to me to keep things really kind of tight when I'm moving teams around and not just go crazy moving them up and down the board. Like, obviously, I know most of the people have the Vikings ranked 1, 2 because they're undefeated. But I started them out the year at 25, and it's taken them a long time to move their way up. And so now I finally got them at 7. If they manage to beat Detroit today, you can bet your bottom dollar, as they would say, that they're definitely going to be inside the top 5 next week. So for now, up 3 from last week. They are 7. Oh, I guess I did have them in the top 10, but just at the very edge. So now they're at 7, and they are up a whopping 18 slots overall for the year, which is awesome. All right, Tampa, I moved up 4 from 12 last week, and they are up, say they started the year at 17, so they're up 9 slots on the year. And just to kind of follow up on what Tampa did last week, we'll take a look at this. Oh yeah, they blew out the Saints, and the Saints are reeling, and I'll talk a little bit about the Saints, but just to finish my thought on the Bucks, 51 points. Mayfield's playing out of his mind. I mean, when a team is hurting and reeling the way that the Saints are, that's what good teams do. The Buccaneers go into their house and they absolutely destroy them. And so the Buccaneers are playing really, really well, and I've been really impressed with them, and so that's why I've got them bumped all the way up to 8. So the Saints have been an interesting case, and they're coming up here. They started out the year really, really hot, right? They blew out Carolina, and then they blew out Dallas. Now, what we're finding out is, obviously, we know that Carolina's not a great team. In fact, they're the worst team in the league. But what we're finding out is that the Dallas win, that's no longer considered a good win, because Dallas isn't a good team. And they're working their way down. So I've had them in the top 10 all year, and they're finally starting to work their way down, because I'm noticing some things about that team that make me just doubt them, So when it comes to the Saints, right? So I started them out at 14 to start the year, okay? And I had them winning the NFC South because there were some things that I liked about the team. I liked the veteran defense. I liked Kamara. I liked Carr. Some of the playmakers they had, Olave, and it's Rashid Shaheed, I believe. For some reason I have trouble with that guy's name. There's so many syllables that sound alike. Anyway, and so after those first 2 games, I was kind of crowing a little bit, just because when I did my power ranking versus ESPN's power ranking, I did a comparison, and I did 5 particular teams where we had major differences. They had the Saints somewhere in the mid-20s. I had them at 14, and I talked about that in one of those earlier shows. And after those first 2 games, I was really crowing. I was like, see, I told you, New Orleans is way better than people think. And now that they've lost 5 in a row, that actually makes me look pretty stupid in hindsight to have crowed about that at all. I think that if they do get healthy, they will start to creep their way back up toward about middle of the pack, which is about where I had them. Now I have severe doubts that they're going to have a shot at the division, but we'll see. You never know. I mean, NFL football is a crazy thing. But for now, with just all of the injuries they're suffering, the 5 losses in a row, Kamara saying, "Hey, I'd leave a game early too," with the way we're playing. Just so many things are just starting to pile up on that team that it looks like they maybe could be in for a long year. So, I guess this is just my way of saying mea culpa. I was wrong about the Saints after I was really taking a little victory lap after those first 2 games, so that's on me. All right, so I've got the Eagles down 4 spots to 9 out of the 5th spot. I had to drop them simply because even though they beat the Browns last week, and I think very low of the Browns right now, even though they do have a really good defense, but they just can't do anything on offense, and they're on the verge of just tearing that team apart. The vibes there are just so bad. And this is just on the heels of me really wanting to move the Eagles down, but really not finding a good reason to, because they've been kind of keeping games close, winning by a slim margin, not really putting bad teams away. So finally, this week I decided, you know what, it's time. It's time to slide the Eagles. So I've got them down to 9, and that is an overall slide of 4 for the year. All right, Dallas, I've got a 10. Another team, I probably should have started moving them down a little bit earlier. It took me a little while. But when you get absolutely demolished like that by the Lions in your own house, to where they're running trick plays to offensive linemen and stuff, that's embarrassing. I think Zimmer, I mean, I guess they were missing some guys on defense, but still, I don't think Zimmer's got it anymore. And that coaching staff and that whole team actually feels old and past their prime. I think maybe they missed their shot, and they never even made an NFC Championship game with some of their best teams. And so I just think Dallas, I think they kind of missed their window, and they're fading now. So anyway, I got them down to 10, down 3 from last week, and down 3 overall for the year. Okay, we just talked about the Saints. They are down 2 from last week. I'm probably gonna make them my biggest faller because of the way they looked this last Thursday night. Let me go to the schedule. Who'd they play? Denver. Yeah, so clearly I have overrated the Saints. I've underrated the Broncos, and that culminated with a big 33-10 win for the Broncos. So for going into that Thursday nighter, I had the Saints at 11. I'm going to make them probably, unless somebody looks really, really bad today, they're going to be my biggest faller. I'll probably be moving them down another 4 next week. But as it stands right now, if we pretend like the Thursday nighter didn't exist, I had them at 11, down 2 from the previous week, and technically up 3 for the year. Cincinnati, I moved down 1. I do believe they beat the Giants on Sunday night, but not convincingly, and I don't know what that says about either the Bengals or the Giants. But I've had to slowly move them out of the top 10. They're starting to creep their way back into the season, but I think maybe they're 2-4 right now. Just double check that. Go look at that Sunday nighter. Yeah, they're 2-4 now. They're starting to creep back in, but I got them at 12, down 1 from last week, and that is down 6 overall for the year. Houston, I've got slowly moving up. Now, they weren't really impressing me earlier in the year. Now they are starting to impress me, and they have a huge game today against the Packers. And we'll see what happens. I mean, that's a really, really great matchup. That's probably the second best matchup of the weekend, or at least today, aside from, of course, the Detroit-Minnesota game. So Houston up 2 from last week, up to 13 now, and that makes them up 3 overall for the year. Just checking in on Houston to see who they beat. They weren't on a bye. Oh yeah, they beat up on the Patriots. Who doesn't though, right? Okay, so but good. You gotta beat those teams. Just like I was saying about Tampa. If a bad team comes into your house or you go into their house, you need to beat them up, because that's what good teams do. So that's what they did. All right, the Chargers, I think, were on a bye. I went ahead and moved them up 1 spot, or maybe did they play? Let's take a look. No. The bye was the week before, so they did play. They beat the Broncos. And, hey, I mean, that win looks a little bit better today, doesn't it? They beat the Broncos 23-16. And you're like, but it was the Broncos. You should win by more than 7. It's like, well, actually, maybe the Broncos aren't as bad as we thought they were. So maybe that win, maybe it was pretty good. And I think it was in Denver. So, yeah, it was in Denver. So Harbaugh's doing that thing that Harbaugh does. What's their record? They are 3-2. He's doing that thing that he does, where he's just, the games are close, but they pull out close wins because they just know how to. Win. I don't know, in late game situations or whatever the case may be. So technically down 1 from last week. I think the reason why I had to move them down is because I had Houston moving up, so somebody had to move out of the way. So they are technically down 1 from last week, and technically down 1 for the year. But the Chargers have been holding steady in that kind of 10-15 range all year. The Rams I've had kind of continuously falling. They're at 15, down 1 from last week, down 7 overall for the year. However, and I know that they are playing the Vikings on this upcoming Thursday night, but they're going to get cut back probably for that game. Nakua, I'm not sure if he'll be back for that game, but he's coming back soon. I think you're going to see the Rams start to have a little bit of an uptick. So some teams, that I've kind of talked about in these top 15 that I think will continue to slide, right? Teams like Dallas, teams like New Orleans, maybe Philadelphia, they're kind of a 50-50. Will they see a hot streak or will they continue to slide? And then teams I think that might be kind of maybe coming back to those preseason top 10 rankings, teams like the Bengals, teams like the Rams, I think will start to maybe find their groove at some point. So Rams at 15, down 7 for the year, down 1 from last week. Steelers, they stayed at 16. They're up technically 2 for the year. I think they had a nice win against the Raiders. They're 4-2. They're having a good year. And now Justin Fields is being benched for Russell Wilson. That's going to be really interesting. And I just want to I need a reminder of who they're playing, because I think it's kind of an interesting matchup. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're playing the new look Jets. The Sunday nighter, Jets at Steelers. That's going to be really, really interesting. I think I actually put money on that one. Probably my most nervous pick of the week. But I do like the Steelers, and I still am not sure about the Jets. Even with Adams, even with Reddick, I'm still not sure. Okay. 17, Chicago, up 1. Actually, down 2 for the year. I get it. I know I haven't been a believer in Chicago. They've gotten hot lately. I wouldn't say that the level of competition they've been beating has been necessarily that great, but when you go to London and you blow out the Jaguars, that definitely is impressive. I didn't really have a chance to move them up more, but I think if they continue this trend of winning games the way that they are, and if Williams keeps playing the way that he is, I think you're going to see the Bears start to make a move in my rankings. But for now, yeah, they 35-16 over the Jags, and who are they playing this weekend, or are they on a bye? They are on a bye this week. So they won't probably have a chance maybe to move up one spot depending on what happens above them. But right now they're at 17, down 2 for the year. Atlanta is at 18. That is actually up 1 for the year, up 1 from last week. That's another team where they've just been involved in a lot of close games where I'm kind of like, I don't know what to think of these guys. But Kirk has been really, really hot and playing really well. And so it's another team I think that could start making a move if they keep winning. So again, it can be hard to move me off of a team. It takes 2 or 3 weeks sometimes to make me go, okay, I'm seeing it now. And so that's why some of these teams like Chicago and Atlanta maybe haven't had a chance to move up quite as much yet, but they will. If they keep winning, they will. Okay. Miami's down another 2. They're at 19 now, and that's another big faller for me. I started them off the year at 10. Now they're down 9 for the year at 19. Let's see. I don't remember what happened to them last week. Let's take a look at what they're doing this week. They are at Indianapolis. It feels like a game like they should win. And I think that Tua is close to coming back, so maybe they find a resurgence there. And what did the Dolphins do last week? They were off last week, so that would explain. And I think the reason why I moved them down 2 on a bye is simply because just the even with a win against the Patriots, just the overall, I don't know, again, sorry to use the word vibe, but just the feeling around that team just hasn't been positive. So maybe they'll have a chance to start, recouping some of those spots that I've dropped them when Tua comes back and maybe the offense gets rolling again. All right, so Washington, I kept at 20. They did lose a tough, hard-fought game against the Ravens, which the Ravens are great. I've had them at 2 the entire year. The only reason why they're not number 1 is because Kansas City hasn't lost yet. So, but I think the top 3 teams in the NFL, Kansas City, it's interesting. They're undefeated, but man, they feel like they've got a few more holes this year than they have in the past. My Super Bowl pick coming into the year was Ravens-Lions, and so far this year, the Ravens and the Lions have looked like quite possibly the 2 strongest teams in the NFL. So right now, that pick looks really solid. But getting back to Washington, they held at 20. They were 20 last week. I have them up 9 spots to start the year. Obviously, people did not think much of them to start the year, or at least based on all the data I put into my model, it came out that, I wasn't thinking highly of the Commanders. So I started them out the year at 29. Now they're at 20. They've been on a run, lost a tough one to Baltimore, but they're on the upswing for sure. Indianapolis is up 2-21, which is actually even with where I started them this year. Like we just said, they're playing the Dolphins this week. I forget what they did last week. I think they lost. No, they won a close one against the Titans, which it's like, yeah, okay, it's the Titans. So I went ahead and moved them up too. That again, I wasn't like necessarily impressed with that win. I know Richardson's back. It's nice having a guy like a Flacco, right, to come in, and he damn near beat the Jaguars, and then he ended up beating the Titans. So having a backup come in and go 1-1, and I think that maybe the week before that they held on to beat the Steelers, right? So technically you could say Flacco went 2-1 in Richardson's absence. So the Colts are a little bit better team than the Titans. And so they should have won. What I was saying was that I moved them up too, simply because I think there were maybe a team or two in that area that I wanted to move down. So Indianapolis kind of benefited from that and moved up too. All right, Seattle's at 22. They're down 2 for the year. They stayed even from last week. They started out the year great, 3-0, but the last few weeks they have not looked good. They've really come back down to earth. I think they're going to end up being about a 500 team for the year, maybe battling for a wild card spot. And fortunately for us, that late in the year game at Seattle doesn't look near as tough as maybe it once did, but we'll see what happens with Seattle. Jacksonville, I had to drop another 2. They're at 23 now. I've got them all the way down from 9, which is a drop of 14 for the year. Things just don't look right in Jacksonville. Lawrence looks like he just may not ever really hit that ceiling. I mean, the Bears just manhandled them in London. And, I mean, the defense doesn't look good. The offense doesn't look like nothing looks good, honestly. They don't look like they're well coached. So they're down another 2. All right, so the Jets, I moved them up 2, even though they lost to the Bills, simply because of, I think when I did my rankings, I did them on Monday. It was after the Adams news came out. And it kind of just gave me like maybe a little bit more of a positive vibe because I've been really, really down on the Jets so far this year. So they made the move at coach. They demoted Hackett. They brought in Adams. Now we hear that Reddick's coming back. So now I've got the Jets at 24, which is up 2 from last week, but overall down 2 for the year just because I haven't been impressed. I mean, if you listen to any New York media, I don't think anyone's impressed. So we'll see what the Jets can do. But again, they got a tough game tonight against the Steelers. So if they manage to win that one, I think that the narrative about the Jets is going to change. All right, Arizona down 1 from last week to 25. They're actually up 2 for the year. And they got their doors blown off by the Packers. And who are they playing? You know what? Are they off? No. They're playing the second of the 2 Monday Nighters. The Chargers come to town. And I expect I think I actually got money on that one, too. I expect the Chargers to win that one. And you know what? I'm going to blow past a half an hour because I'm just so long-winded this morning. Maybe I just missed you guys so much. I just got so much to say. Okay. Denver up 1 to 26, which is actually even for the year. Clearly, with that really nice win on Thursday night, I'm probably going to be moving them up a little bit more. So Bo Nix is maybe starting to prove me wrong a little bit. I have definitely been questioning him. At the very least, he looks... Drake May's only had 1 start so far, but Bo looks competent. I don't know. Makes a lot of mistakes, makes a lot of weird plays, but he won't torpedo a game, I guess is what I mean by the word competent, which isn't quite the right usage, but he's at least keeping the Broncos in the game, and if their defense plays really great like they have been, he's kind of been good enough. I don't really expect the Broncos to do much this year, but maybe they've got a guy that can at least keep them competitive going forward. I mean, that's really all I can say about that. Okay. The Raiders continue to fall. I had them kind of holding steady for a long time at 23. They fell 2 last week. They fell another 2 this week to 27. They're down 4 for the year. Vegas, they need... I like Pierce. I think that he is a good coach for that particular franchise, kind of in the same way Campbell is a good coach for the Detroit franchise. I think he brings the right culture for the Raiders, because my wife is actually a Raiders fan, and she agrees. She thinks that Pierce is the right guy for the job. So in terms of culture building, bringing in their types of guys, I think that the Raiders could start to, especially if maybe they are drafting in the top 3 to 5, maybe they get a really great quarterback out of this next year's draft, and maybe they start to make a move the way that the Commanders are this year, right? Just 1 year behind. But for this year, the Raiders don't look good. Okay, the Giants held steady at 28. They lost to the Bengals, but they are technically up 2 for the year. Daniel Jones has been a little bit better than I expected him to be. Dayball, I think, is... I don't think he'll get fired there. I think they're going to move on from Jones, but I think Dayball will stay. The Titans I had staying even. In fact, I had the entire bottom of my power rankings staying pretty even. Tennessee held at 29. They're down 1 for the year. Levis is... I hate using words like this to describe players because they're all NFL players, but Levis is trash, isn't he? And I remember, hang on. Back in my older days of Twitter when I had another account, I got into an argument with the guy over Will Levis. I just said that he didn't strike me as the kind of guy who seemed emotionally intelligent enough to run it, to be the leader of a team. And that guy just, I mean, it's not so much a disagreement. When you're talking to somebody on Twitter and they have that real kind of arrogant, condescending, mocking tone that they disagree with you to such a degree that it's already like a foregone conclusion in their mind outside of reality that you're wrong. And so I walked away from that conversation feeling very gross. But as it turns out, my thoughts on Will Levis were correct. So whoever that guy was, I'm sure he doesn't care. But he was wrong. So anyway, moving on. Cleveland at 30, which is a drop of 6 from the start of the year at 24. Cleveland, again, that's a team I think is prepared to get torn down. Obviously, they traded Cooper, and I think that's one of many, many moves that are going to be made here pretty soon. I hope the Vikings can get Dalvin Tomlinson. That's a guy I talked about during a trade deadline segment. Okay, Patriots at 31 and Panthers at 32. That hasn't changed, I don't think, for a while. They're just the 2 worst teams in the NFL. Cleveland might challenge New England, but for now, it's Patriots and Panthers bringing up the rear. Okay, so that concludes the power rankings, and so now we're going to head over to the weekly picks. All right. Had a really good week. Week 6, I was 12-2 straight up, 9-5 against the spread, and my Fermented Five went 4-1, which was disappointing. The one that I lost was actually I picked the Eagles to cover 9.5 points against the Browns, and they ruined it for me. They did not. They won by 4, so I did not get my parlay. So I was 4-1 though, so I had a pretty good week. The other games I got wrong. I thought Tennessee would beat Indy. They didn't. I thought New Orleans would beat Tampa simply because based on where I had them in my power rankings and stuff like that, I thought maybe the Saints were a little better than what they've shown the last few weeks. I thought that Dallas would at least cover the spread against the Lions. That game had no chance. And I actually thought the Panthers would cover the spread against the Falcons. And, you know, they held it close there for a minute, but the Falcons pulled away in the second half. So anyway, that was last week. Still a good week, though. So then, and of course, I continued with my belief in the Saints heading into Thursday night by picking the Saints to win, even though they were 2.5-point dogs at home. Didn't come anywhere near that happening, so I took a loss to start off the week. So I'm 0-1 straight up, 0-1 against the spread so far in week 7. Okay, so let's get to the picks, all right? So we already know about that one. So we've got Patriots at Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 6 at home, which is crazy when you think about it. I don't know what that says about the Patriots, that with as bad as the Jaguars have been, coming off that loss to the Bears in London, that they're still favored by 6 points. So technically my spread came out at 7, so I have the Jaguars winning and covering that spread barely. So I don't know if it's a lack of belief in the Patriots or Drake May or both, but anyway. Seahawks at Falcons. Interesting game here. Falcons favored by 3 at home. I have the Falcons by 3, so I'm going to go ahead and say that they win, and I'm going to go ahead and say that they will cover the 3. Just barely. I think it'll be a close game. All right. Titans at Bills. Big spread here. We got Bills by 9.5 at home. My spread came out huge. It was as huge as my big spread last week with the Eagles, 31. So I see the Bills winning this by multiple scores. So I have the Bills obviously winning and obviously covering. But I did not put money on this one because I had put little caveats into my betting process last year. And I told myself, when there's like huge disparities between where I have teams ranked, or like maybe near the end of the year when there's like huge differences in their records, I'm like, don't trust those huge spreads. And so I made that mistake last week. I took that huge spread in that Eagles-Browns game. It ended up burning me and costing me some money. So this week, even though I love the Bills in this matchup, I am not going to include the Bills in my Fermented Five. So I got a little no there. But Bills will win. Bills will cover, in my opinion. Okay, Bengals at Browns, the all-Ohio matchup. The Browns are dogs by 5.5 at home. My spread came out 6 to Cincinnati. So I do have Cincinnati winning and covering that spread on the road. That's going to be a tough one. We'll see how it plays out. Because it's divisional, and it's Cleveland. It's on the road, It could be cold or muddy. You never know. So games like that, those are really... I stay away from those when it comes to betting. Then here's I love this game. I'll be keeping my eye on it for sure. The Texans at the Packers. Packers favored by 3 at home. That just goes to show, with as highly as people think of the Texans, people think very highly of the Packers, and I would tend to agree with that. So my spread came out in favor of 7 to the Packers, so I do have the Packers both winning and covering today, unfortunately. All right, Dolphins at Colts. Colts favored by 3 at home. My spread came out Colts by 1.5, which means I do have the Colts winning. However, I have the Dolphins covering. Okay? All right. Here's one. There's no way I'm putting money on this one. Just too close to call. And unfortunately, again, I got to pick against the Vikings. Lions at Vikings. Vikings favored by 1, at least as recently as yesterday. I know that line's been moving. It started out Vikings by 2.5. Now it's at 1. But my spread came out Detroit by 2. So with Detroit being a 1-point dog, I have them winning outright. All right, then we're going to skip some of these. Those are my Fermented Five. We have Chiefs at Niners. What a great matchup there in a late afternoon game. Niners favored by 2 at home, which is super, super interesting considering the Chiefs being 5-0. My spread came out Chiefs by 4, which means I do have the Chiefs winning outright because they're 2-point dogs in that. Okay, and then my final pick before the Fermented Five is another really good game. This is going to be a Monday nighter. Ravens at Bucks. I love it. Bucks are actually, even with as well as they've been playing, the Ravens are just a juggernaut. So Ravens, dogs by 3.5 at home. My spread came out Ravens by 3, so I do have the Ravens winning. However, I do have the Bucks keeping it close and covering. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up my graphic for the Fermented Five. Actually, hold on. You know what? I like to bring it to main cam first, just for the aesthetic of it all, I guess. All right, and then let's run our graphic.
Fermented Five.
All right, back to me, and then we'll come on over back to the spreadsheet. All right, here we go. So time for the Fermented Five. That is Eagles at Giants. Even with the Eagles burning me last week, and I feel like they burned me a couple of times this year, but yet again, here I am. Giants dogs by 3.5 at home. My spread came out Eagles by 11.5, so I have the Eagles winning on the road and covering those 3.5. Okay, next up we have Raiders at Rams. Rams favored by 7 at home. My spread came out Rams by 15, so I've got the Rams winning and covering at home. Next up, you have Panthers at Commanders. Commanders favored by 10, big spread. It can be a little bit scary to put money in games like this, but I'm going to go ahead and say that Washington wins and covers the 10 at home. All right, next up you have Jets at Steelers. Another highly interesting game that I've mentioned before. Steelers are actually dogs by 2 at home. I think that has everything to do with the Jets acquisitions and also the Russell Wilson situation with the benching of Fields and the starting of Wilson. So that would explain, even with the Steelers clearly being a better team so far this year than the Jets, that would explain why they're 2-point dogs. So my spread came out. I will take those 2 points. I'll take the Steelers to win outright. And then finally, I'm taking the last of the 2 Monday Nighters, the Chargers at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are home dogs by only 1.5. They've got that one kind of close, which is kind of surprising. My spread came out Chargers by 9. So I have the Chargers on the road winning and covering that 1.5. So there is your Fermented Five. I am 18-12 on the year, which is a 60% winning percentage. And coming off a nice 4-1 week. And just wanted to show you my bet slip real quick, just so you know what I'm looking at. Okay. Hold on, I've got it over there on ESPN. Here's the bet slip. Okay, so just like I said, Chargers to cover the 1.5, Steelers to win outright, 2-point dogs, Rams to cover the 7, Commanders to cover the 10, and Eagles to cover the 3.5. I put down my $20. I got paid recently, so I have money again. And if I win my 5-game parlay, then I win $478.10. So we'll see if that happens, but it hasn't happened for me since week 1. Anyway, we are back to main cam. We covered 40 minutes, and we are about 2 hours away from Vikings Lions. I'm going to go check out that terrible Thursday night. What game is that's being played right now? That terrible Patriots Jaguars London game. We'll go see what's going on over there. But you know the mantra of the show, right? And that is play vicious, be victorious. Peace.